Thank you very much for waiting. Let us begin the afternoon session. We apologize for the delay in resuming due to technical issues with the live stream. Now, Professor Akihiro Nakamura, Chairperson, the IATSS International Forum Committee, will give us the introduction of today's symposium. Professor Nakamura, please proceed.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. I'm Akihiro Nakamura, Chair of Steering Committee for this forum. On behalf of the Steering Committee, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to all of you here and to our online audience for joining us today. As you see, this year's theme is creating a traffic culture for a safety society. In the morning session, our two distinguished keynote speakers gave us a very informative speeches on this theme. One from an academic perspective, the other from the practical perspectives. Thank you, Nicola Sensei, and thank you, Claudia-san. As our President Takeuchi Sensei mentioned in his opening remarks, this forum is now in its 10th year. We held this forum once a year. We IATSS are celebrating our 50th anniversary this year. So 10 years ago, when we celebrated our 40th anniversary, we started this forum. We wanted to create an international platform to discuss safer transportation society. So the theme of the first GIFTS was diverse, regionally rooted transport cultures. To create a safe transportation society, we thought our discussion needed to take into account the culture of each country and each region. In this context, we have explored the behavior of road users and the activities of people and organizations involved in road safety. And we have continued our discussions with the aim of moving toward a joint worldwide effort to reduce traffic accidents. This 10th gift should be the culmination of these discussions. Our desire to create a safe society is reflected in this year's title. Furthermore, we believe that we need to discuss ways to enhance well-being through mobility. Today's discussion will be a starting point to discuss what we need to do to achieve this. We are going to have two discussions. As you know, the primary activity of IATSS is research activity. So we hope to contribute to creating a safe society with scientific knowledge. In preparation for the 5th anniversary, we IATSS has conducted a country fact survey. This survey examined what kind of research, what kind of road safety measures, or what kind of policies are needed in each region to move toward a safe mobility society. The first panel discussion will be based on this country fact survey data. The moderator of the first panel discussion will be Dr. Hideki Nakamura. He is an IATSS member and professor of Graduate School of Environmental Studies at Nagoya University. In addition to him, we have 4 other panelists. The first one is Ms. Susanna Zamataro. She is the Chief Executive, International Road Federation, known as IRF. And Dr. Wanda van den Berge, he is the Director, Tilcon Research and Consulting. And Dr. Gassan Ablebde, he is an associate professor of civil engineering, Marshall University. The last but not least, Dr. Azusa Toriumi, she is an assistant professor of Institute of Industrial Science, the University of Tokyo. The three panelists, except Ms. Zamataro, are members of the research project that is the subject of this discussion. And in the second workshop, discussion will be about implementation. The purpose of this workshop is to discuss how to apply scientific findings to an actual policy in each country or each region. This workshop will be moderated by Dr. Akinori Morimoto. He is an IATSS member, professor of city and transportation planning at Waseda University. In addition to Dr. Morimoto, 3 other speakers have been invited to this workshop. Dr. Michael Anyala, he is a senior transport specialist, Asian Development Bank, known as ADB. Mr. Yasuhiro Suhara, he is the director of Transportation Group Team 1 in Infrastructure Management Department, Japan International Cooperation Agency, known as JICA. In addition to these 2 panelists, Claudia-san, our keynote speaker, she will join us for the workshop. We are truly looking forward to a practical discussion on the social implementation of the findings of research activities. We hope these 2 discussions will provide some insight into our IATSS future activities. Once again, today's discussion, GIFT discussion, is a culmination of the past 10 years. And at the same time, we believe that it will be the start of discussions for the next decade. We want to build a sustainable society. We want to think about what we can do from the field of mobility to achieve this goal. So we hope that this GIFTS platform we have created will become a platform for international communication with a view to the next decade. I hope you all enjoyed the 2 discussions that follow. I look forward to your active participation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Nakamura. We'll now prepare the stage, so please wait a moment. Thank you for waiting. Before starting the next session, we have some announcements for online participants. If you have any questions, please click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen and type your question into the Q&A box. Please ensure to indicate to whom your question is directed. Also, please note that we may not be able to respond to all questions. Any unanswered questions will be addressed later. For the participant through YouTube, questions and comments are not accepted through YouTube. If you'd like to ask questions, please leave YouTube channel and re-enter Zoom channel. Now the panel discussion of international perspective on traffic safety culture shall commence. The coordinator of this session is Professor Hideki Nakamura, member of IATSS, Professor Graduate School of Environmental Studies, Nagoya University. Professor Nakamura, please go up to the stage. Next, let us introduce today's panelist. When your name is announced, please go up to the stage. Ms. Susanna Zamataro. Dr. Walter van den Belge. Dr. Gassan Ablebde. And Dr. Azusa Toriumi. Now I'd like to pass the facilitation to Professor Nakamura. Professor Nakamura, please.
Okay, thank you very much. And first of all, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hideki Nakamura, a member of IATSS. I'm a professor of traffic engineering and transportation planning at the Nagoya University. The International Association of Traffic and Safety Sciences, IATSS, carried out an international collaborative research project since 2016. This series of research projects have focused on road safety measures and policies required in regions worldwide for safe and secure mobility society, considering cultural differences. Accordingly, we were given this opportunity to hold a panel discussion session as a final GIFTS event. I'm a project leader of the International Collaborative Research Project and will serve as a coordinator of this panel session. Your cooperation in ensuring the smooth running of the session is highly appreciated. So I would like to talk a little bit more by using slides. As you can see here, according to WHO report, the number of people killed in traffic accidents worldwide in 2021 is about 1.19 million. This situation varies by region, climate condition, income level, road user type, and another various factor. It is so that the so-called traffic safety culture is related to these backgrounds, and the aim of this session is to consider this point from a global perspective. Then, first of all, I would like to briefly introduce 4 distinguished panelists from the world, although they have already been introduced several times. First panelist is Ms. Susanna Zamataro. She is the Chief Executive of International Road Federation, IRF, in Geneva, Switzerland, which is a global organization with a mission to promote the development of road networks that enable access to and sustainable mobility for all. She's an untiring advocate for road safety. And she also has served as chairperson of the Safer Road and Mobility Pillar of the UN Road Safety Collaboration Group, UNRSC, and lends her support to a number of other initiatives supporting the road safety agenda. Next panelist is Dr. Walter van den Berge. Is Director of Telecom Research and Consulting. Walter has an in-depth understanding of road safety, education, and policy issues both at the international and the European level. He is considered as a world expert in the field of road safety performance indicators. He was research director of VIATSS Institute in Brussels between 2014 and 2022, where he focused on developing international partnerships, participating in international associations, managing international projects. He recently obtained a PhD degree linking culture to support for road safety policy measures. He is a member of our research project and will give suggestions from a European perspective. Next, Dr. Gaston Abeleblet. He is an associate professor at Marshall University in Huntington, West Virginia, USA. His research and teaching interests include traffic operations, transportation system sustainability, and public health. He had been working at American University of Sharjah in the UAE until recently and contributed to our project a lot as one of the project members who are familiar with Arab situations. Last but not least, Dr. Azusa Torimi. She is a research associate at the University of Tokyo. She is a traffic engineer and a member of this project since the beginning, and has played an important role in leading the country facts survey, which is an original international survey of this project. By utilizing this experience, she will later give a brief presentation on the facts related to legislation, enforcement, and education for road safety. And actually, this panel discussion session consists of two parts. First, as a background of the discussion, I would like to provide you with major results of our international collaborative research project by spending first 30 minutes. And then short presentations by panelists will follow, and discussion, and we repeat this kind of process twice. And finally, we would like to conclude this session. Okay, then at the beginning, I'd like to present the brief overview of International Collaborative Research Project. The research team consists of various diverse members worldwide, as listed in the slide, actually from 10 countries. And the research question of this project is, how does traffic safety culture affect crash risks? And based on this kind of problem statement, the objectives of this research projects to indicate the cause and effect relation mechanism between infrastructure, social systems, behavior, traffic safety culture, etc., and the number of fatalities. And also to suggest road traffic safety policy recommendations by considering different traffic safety cultures. And out of this objective, today, due to the limited time, we only focus on two major research items. That are first, the development of the structural equation model, SEM, for fatal crash risks, and the data collection through the country factor survey on road traffic safety. This will be presented by Dr. Toriumi later. Then, I would like to briefly overview the result of the structural equation modeling for traffic safety culture. The objective of this research is to structuralize the causal, not casual, but causal structure between traffic safety culture and road crashes based on the SAM. And also to propose road safety policy depending on country and region status. And as everybody knows, road traffic crashes or some risky behavior in road traffic related to various factors as shown in this slide. Of course, enforcement, education, engineering, so-called 3 E's. And as a background of this kind of violation of crashes, of course, individual behavior or attitude is strongly correlated. And furthermore, as a background of this kind of individual behavior level, the system, social system or custom, moral, and culture, everything is affecting, right? And this can also be affected through maybe climate conditions and economic situation as well, right? The major purpose of our research project was to structuralize, right, or quantitatively describe the relationship among these various factors. Then we hypothesized structure of a structural education model from top. The economy will affect education, enforcement, and engineering, of course. And education level enforcement will affect human behavior, norm, attitude, intention, and risky behavior, which is described as well known as so-called theory of planned behavior, TPP. And in our research, we also hypothesized that climate will also affect this individual behavior. Then the data. We combined various sources of the data. The most important data in this analysis was so-called ESRA-2 survey. ESRA is an e-survey for road user attitude, right? And Wouter van den Berger is very familiar with this survey, and which is individual questionnaire survey collected in 48 countries worldwide. And in total, we have over 45,000 number of samples. And also, we combined ESRA survey data with open world statistical data. For example, WHO, World Bank, and CIA. And some climate data will be collected from the source of the UK National Environment Research Council and US Department of Energy. Then we defined these variables for the SEM, economy, climate, fatality, right, from statistical data, and education, engineering as well. And from enforcement, frequency of transportation modes, and most right-hand side variables are collected by using, by aggregating ESRA-2 data, individual data. Then we first conducted a factor analysis because 48 countries are too many to directly to be modeled. So we first wanted to classify into several groups of the countries. And for this purpose, we did factor analysis, and this table is showing the result of the factor analysis. You can see various factors. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the result of the factor analysis. As a result of the factor analysis, we could find that there are 4 different clusters from 1 to 4. And blue bar stands for the security, right? In cluster 1 and cluster 2, the blue bar is negative, right? That means the security is lower. And on the other side, at the bottom, you can see the orange bar, which is also negative. That is enforcement, right? In this way, we can classify and categorize the groups of the countries by doing a factor analysis. But due to the fewer number, small number of samples, particularly for clusters 1 and 2, we concluded to group these 2 groups, 2 clusters, as defined as group 1 right, surrounded by a black dashed line, and the group 2 and the group 3. Then the remarkable feature of differences between group 2 and 3 is orange bar. Orange bar for group 2 is positive, while that for group 3 is negative. So enforcement is strong in group 2 and weak or loose for group 3. This is remarkable differences. Then this chart is showing the transport modes in each group, which we have just defined in the previous slide. The higher means higher use, right? And from left-hand side, walk, motorcycle, bike, car, bus, and rail. And from this result, you can see the gray bar stands for group 1. Group 1 can be categorized as pre-motorization state because the use of motorcycle is relatively higher and bike is as well, and the fewer usage for the car, while group 2 and 3 are so-called motorized countries. You can see car use is higher and the motorcycle usage lower. And particularly for group 3, you can see the frequency to go out is lower comparing to that for group 2. These are characteristics of each group from the viewpoint of the transportation mode. Then this result is indicated on the map. And regarding group 1, we can define it as a so-called pre-motorization countries or regions. And the group 2, which is a green-colored portion, please note that the group specific feature of group 2 was the enforcement is stronger, right? So accordingly, we attempted to define this group of countries as controlled safety. And group 3 is self-disciplined safety. And on the right-hand side, you can see a chart which is showing the number of fatalities per capita, right? The gray part is for group 1. The number of fatalities per capita is relatively higher, and gradually it is getting smaller. Then, from this slide, I would like to briefly show you the result of the SEM. Right? We conducted SEM, structural equation modeling, for each of these different groups. And we wanted to understand the difference in structure. Then this is a result for the group 1, which is pre-motorization countries. And significant variables and significant paths only are being shown in these slides. And you can see, if attitude becomes better, right, intention of risky behavior decreases because the sign minus 0.362, it is negative, right? And this will further affect the number of fatalities, which is positive, right? This is reasonable. And also, the higher economy, higher education, right, higher attitude. This is also reasonable. Then, interestingly, right, bottom left, you can see a green box, which is a temperature. Temperature will positively affect the use of a two-wheeler, right? That simultaneously means the lower usage of the car. But if the use of the car increases, the number of fatality increases, right? At this kind of pre-motorization stages, right? The increase in number of cars may affect increase in number of fatalities under mixed traffic conditions. It is being suggested from this result. And also, yes, this way. And the infrastructure, better infrastructure, right, increases number of fatality at this stage, at the very beginning of the development. Then, in summary, from this result, for this kind of countries, along with infrastructure development, we need to promote safety education, particularly for motorcycle users, and we have to realize a transition to a safer environment for car use. They have been suggested from the result. Then, next is the result for Group 2, control safety countries. So you can see this orange dotted line path from norm, attitude, risky behavior to fatality, right? I think this is very reasonable, right? If the attitude becomes better, risky behavior decreases, and risky behavior will induce the increase in number of fatalities, which is positive. And from economy, right, you can two paths, right? Both of them are very reasonable. Higher economy, higher education, right, and better attitude, right? And economy to infrastructure, and the infrastructure will contribute to the decrease in the number of fatalities at this kind of development stage. And also, temperature will affect the increase in motorcycle dependency, and this will cause to increase risky behavior and further to the increasing number of fatalities. And also, on the right bottoms, you can see precipitation. The higher precipitation affects the increase in number of fatalities. Therefore, for Group 2 control safety countries, the impact of weather condition is significant in motorcycle-dependent countries. And it is necessary to implement measures tailored to the traffic characteristics in each region. These are the recommendations. And finally, I would like to show you the result for the Group 3, self-disciplined safety countries. So this is also a reasonable path, higher economy, higher education, right, good norm, attitude, and this will discourage risky behavior, intentional risky behavior, and intentional risky behavior increases, number of fatality increases as well. And infrastructure development will contribute to decrease in the number of fatalities. And from temperature, right, you can see a figure of a negative number, minus 0.527. So higher temperature will discourage the use of active mode. I think this is reasonable. Active mode means bike or walk, right? Healthy modes. And use of active mode contributes to decrease in the number of fatality. And also, the precipitation negatively affects the use of the active mode, okay? So therefore, for this group of countries, it is important to promote a shift from cars to active modes, such as cycling and walking, through infrastructure improvements. And also, it is necessary to promote the regulations that will not lead to the intentional violation may be useful. So too much strict, unreasonable enforcement does not necessarily give a good effect. Then, up to the previous slide, I briefly overview the result of the SCM. And in these three groups, it was common that so-called TPB structures, theory of planned behavior structures, were common on road traffic safety. Yeah, we found that they are common. And in this chart, relative influences of each variable on the number of fatalities are indicated by bar chart. And first, regarding climate, the impact of climate is less significant in pre-motorization countries. And in pre-motorization countries, economic growth and motorization worsen the traffic safety, right, at the beginning. And also, it was suggested that promotion of active modes contributes to reduce the road fatality in self-disciplined countries. Then, according to these results, we would like to recommend these policies for each group of countries. For pre-motorization countries, it is necessary to promote safety awareness and improve the quality of roads, rather than simply extending them. Because the motorcycle use is very heavy, right? So rapid increase of the rapid mode change is not expected. And for control safety countries, motorcycle is stable in this group of countries. And some motorcycle-oriented and road safety measures are also required. And regarding self-disciplined countries, those countries where climate conditions are suitable for active modes, such as walking or cycling, tend to have a better traffic safety levels. And for these countries, the promotion in the development of walkable or bikeable cities and shift from car use will be very effective in further reducing road crashes. Okay, so I'd like to end my report. And from next slide, Dr. Asa Torimi will briefly overview the result of the country factor survey on road traffic safety. Please.
Thank you. So following Professor Nakamura's presentation, I'm going to introduce the country factor survey, which is another main topic of the previous project that we conducted. So the country factor survey is rather simple than the structural equation model. What we did was to highlight the importance of international comparison of road safety systems by a set of national indicators and facts. So for that, we had 9 countries to be collaborated under years from the researchers from each country. And data were collected and reorganized into a common format wherever possible. This is very important, like different countries had actually different types, formats of the data, but we tried to be comparable as much as possible. Okay. So let's quickly overview the results. Like this chart, 2 chart shows the road development level and level of motorization in these 9 countries. So what I did is try to highlight at what level each countries were in terms of road development as well as the motorization. The left chart shows the road density in terms of population as the horizontal axis, as well as the land use, land area as the vertical axis. So the right top part shows the higher development of road condition. So the different countries have different levels, but it also depends on the terrain, land use, some other many conditions. Yeah, the right figure shows the level of motorization as horizontal axis for the number of motor vehicles per capita, and the horizontal axis is share of private car in personal trip. So you can see like the shift of the motorization from left bottom to the right top part. But although the number of car is similar on the horizontal axis, but the different countries have a different share of private car trip use. So the dependency of the private car use varies by country. Yes. The other one is showing the maximum speed limit in different countries. As introduced by the keynote speaks in the morning session, the speed is one of the most important factors. And from engineering point of view or theoretically, different types of road should be operated under different speed levels. But if we look at the legal speed limit, most countries have very simple classification, like just 2 categories or 3 categories that does not necessarily correspond to the different speed level to be ideal for the different road types. Yeah. But we also has to be noted that local adjustment of the legal speed limit by using posted speed limit is important and rather common in many countries. And for this figure shows the penalties for overspeeding by excess speed. As you can see, like the horizontal axis means excess speed, how many overspeed they take. And the vertical axis shows normalized fine by GNI per capita. So by income, we compare how much penalty is heavier for the citizens. And you can see like many countries apply stepwise increase of speeding fine according to the excess speed, but its amount varies a lot depending on the countries. The, how can I say, strictness of the penalty is different. And not many countries define speed limit differently for different types of road. As you can see, like the left figure shows the penalty for motorways, while right figure shows penalty for urban roads. The speed, overspeeding means very different on it's happened on motorways or it's happened on urban road, but most countries don't distinguish such different, how can I say, types of penalty. So let's move, skip. And this chart shows the enforcement level. So we tried to assess the enforcement level of each country where they live in by if the amount of enforcement cameras for overspeeding on different types of road, as well as red light running, red light violations. So you can see like different color tone on different country, as well as on different types of road. So different countries have different enforcement intensities, but generally speaking, emerging countries such as China or some other may have more strict enforcement than developed countries. This result really corresponds to the SEM result, like group 2 is controlled safety, while the group 3 is self-discipline, so no strict enforcement is necessary in some countries. And different countries have different policies on where to concentrate enforcement. And finally, regarding the education, we tried to check the frequency of license renewal of drivers. And we thought like renewal of driving license is the potential opportunity of sustainable education of drivers. Let driver know new regulation, new law, or development of a car, or something like that. But what we found is like the renewal is less frequent, like every 10 years or sometimes 15 years or something like that. And in most of the countries, and the contents of the driving license renewal, it's just simply renewing the personal photocopies on the license card and not really providing the additional knowledge or additional technological knowledge or something like that. So I quickly overviewed what we surveyed as the country factor survey. And as a concluding remark, I would like to emphasize that collection and comparison of national indicators and facts are important to investigate the causal relationship of various factors related to traffic safety, as done by SEM that Professor Nakamura introduced. But existing databases, they are provided like these international organizations do have the available databases are quite useful and actually used in the SEM model as well, but still lack some facts and countries. For example, drivers' education. What kind of facts are available in database? Actually, there's very few. And particularly the facts that cannot be easily quantitatively measured are missing. For that, our country factor survey, like this, like collaboration of experts from each country play a significant role in collecting missing data, clarifying the facts and the background information. Actually, different countries may have a different method of collecting the indicator or different definition of the indicator, and establishing the possible ways of international comparison despite such a difference in the background. That's all for my introduction.
So thank you very much, Dr. Satoriyumi. I hope that everybody recognize that collection of this kind of data, which are not open to public, is also very significant activities in order to understand the difference in user behavior or furthermore the traffic safety culture. And because of the limited time for the presentation, the content which we were allowed to present today were very limited, but all the results were consolidated through very intensive discussions among the members of international collaborative research project members for several years. And in this regard, at this opportunity, I would like to appreciate all the efforts of the members. Okay, then now I would like to move to the real panel discussion session. And the topic of the first round of the panel discussion is, the question is regarding the descriptions on the safety status of our panelist country and region, highlighting main challenges. This time we invited 4 panelists from various parts of the world. Right? From each perspective, the state of the art of the traffic safety and the challenges will be presented. And I would like to ask Dr. Asatoriba again. Is it okay? Okay, please.
Because we are in Japan, I start from the situation in Japan and following the Asian countries regarding the main challenges in traffic safety. So first, about Japan. Yes, this figure shows the change of the number of traffic deaths and injuries in Japan since 1960, with the change of driving license holder, registered vehicles, number of vehicle kilometers traveled. You can see like motorization started from 1960 and progressed until 1990, and that leads a great number of traffic deaths and injuries. And these, how can I say, this and the problem in traffic safety actually has led infrastructure development, legislation, and strengthened penalties, and traffic safety education, vehicle technology development, and so on. So thanks to such a very hard work to improve the traffic safety situation, now you see on the road like many of the driver following traffic rules, and the situation is quite calm in many roads. So we can say like traffic safety culture in Japan is somehow matured. So this is corresponding to the result that presented by the SAM by Professor Nakamura. Like we can say like self-disciplined safety is somehow achieved in Japan. Then what is the main challenges now? The first one is shown by the left figure. This is the change of demographic situation. So before, like during the motorization on the left top figure, yes, the populations were mainly for young people. But now it's shifted, like by 50 years, elderly people comes to be the 30% of population. And this is like so-called super aging society we are. And the right chart shows the traffic deaths per age group change from 1989. You can see like the traffic deaths of the young people or middle-aged people are decreasing, while the elderly's traffic deaths didn't really decrease, like have a higher share in traffic deaths. So elderly people are likely to become both victims and perpetrators. So we are trying to think about possible measures, like we have to apply advanced vehicle technologies to support elderly drivers. And the driving license system must be improved. Like now, driving license is just only one. If we have the license, we can drive anywhere. But we may need to think about conditional license, like limited area or limited condition, something like that. And also, we have to improve the accessibility of the city or town, particularly the suburb and rural towns, because nowadays, elderly people cannot go outside without a car because many facilities are spread and it's not walkable. So associated to such a possible measure, the second challenge I raised is transformation from car-oriented society to car-free society. It's also emphasized by the keynote speech in the morning. So the Ministry of Land Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism, Japan, actually showed this kind of vision, try to be more active, like without private cars. And this, how can I say, needs is also consistent with the SEM result, the policy recommendation provided by Professor Nakamura. But if we look at the traffic deaths by transport mode, yes, we have a problem of pedestrian crashes. So many crashes are occurred for pedestrians. So we have to reallocate urban space for more walkable or bikeable space. And we need to protect pedestrians. So now government is trying to implement zone 30 plus, so-called zone 30 plus, that is the applying the speed limit of 30 kilometers per hour, as well as installing physical device, such as raised crosswalks, speed bumps, or any other, to reduce the vehicle, as well as to reduce the speed. Yes, and associated that, of course, we also need to improve cycling environment. Yeah. And besides, we have a problem of unclear function of road. This is the chart what I presented in the previous presentation. You can see the Japanese case. Actually, we only have two categories for speed limit, motorway or other roads. So that results in the same 60 km per hour speed limit of both road I showed in this picture. Like the top one, yes, okay, no one cross, you can go at higher speed. But the bottom one, oh, there is a pedestrian, there is a bicycle, no sidewalk, but still the speed limit is 60. So more segregation, depending on the type of road or function of road, is required. We can stay like high speed for intercity connections, while low speed is required for pedestrian-oriented areas. So now government tried to revise the stationary maximum speed limit of the road with no central line into 30 kilometers per hour to be in near future. But of course, we also need to think about comprehensive road network planning and management to satisfy different needs. Okay, so let's move to the situation in Asian countries. I am not really the best person to represent Asian countries, but through my experience to visit these countries and the communication with the international students from these countries, yes, many Asian countries are under emerging and development or developing, and motorization is just in progress. So number of traffic deaths are high, much higher than Japan, and in some countries still increasing. This chart showing the change of number of road traffic deaths, and some countries seems to be decreasing, but the data in 2021 may be affected by COVID-19, so we are not sure they are really decreasing or not. And comparing to the global average, yes, some countries still higher. So the situation in these countries are so-called like controlled safety or pre-motorization status, according to the SEM result. Then the main challenge is like motorcycle. This is also mentioned by keynote speech, and the mixture of motorcycle and the passenger cars, or many different types of vehicles. This makes the safety problem more severer. And the expansion of city, because economy is still growing, so the city is expanding and the car use is increasing. So to achieve traffic safety, we need to think about how to manage, how to control such an expansion. So we do need comprehensive urban and transportation planning. And my question is, will they follow the track that experienced by other developed countries, like the motorcycle use now dominant, but many people shifted to private car use, and then realize, okay, walking is more important than try to reduce car use? Or we can find a more efficient track, because we already know that dependent on private car is not good for traffic safety. Then why don't you promote walking as a substitute mode of motorcycle or something like that? Yeah. So for these countries, actually, what is needed is really comprehensive traffic safety program. So motorization often invade walking environment as well, although we are discussing the importance of walking environment, but because of the economical development is more attractive, I'm really not saying attractive, then such an aspect is not, how can I say, focused. So in addition, pedestrians themselves take very risky behavior because they don't know how risky they are. So proper education and enforcement still play an important role, because many people are not just aware of traffic rule or aware of danger of risky behavior. Okay, so.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Toriumi. Then next, some perspectives from Arab countries. Dr. Gaston Ablevle, please.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. The perspective I'll provide is about the United Arab Emirates, even though I currently have a different affiliation, but at the time of the study, when I participated in the International Collaborative Research Project, I was based at the American University of Sharjah. So my perspective is based on what we've seen and learned from the study. Part of what I say also applies to other countries in the region there, as I will explain shortly. So it is a perspective on Arab countries, but I need to make a very clear distinction here. It's more the United Arab Emirates case. And there are things that are unique about the country. Some of you probably are familiar with the area, but I will just sort of maybe provide some background about the country and the area so that what I say at the end becomes, sort of provide a context for what I will say at the end. So the United Arab Emirates is a good representation of the Arabian Gulf or Persian Gulf countries. They are rich countries, oil dependent, if you will, or their economy is primarily because of oil, although things are changing now. So it's a good representation of the Gulf countries, but it's not a good representation of the rest of the Arab world. Very significant difference. This is where we are. That's the area of focus, and that's the United Arab Emirates. And those countries are the Gulf Cooperation Council. They are, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, Oman, and United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia are all sort of share some background, and their economies are similar. Of course, there are differences, but I think what I will say shortly probably applies very well, of course, to the Emirates, because that's the case, but also it's a good representation of the other countries that you see there. It's a highly diverse, the United Arab Emirates, highly diverse and dynamic population. That's probably even an understatement. If you look at this chart, it shows you how much the population increased in the last 20 or actually 30 years. So it's dramatic change in population. This is just not the population of the natives, if you will. This increase is primarily because of migration, primarily foreign workers or expatriates. The interesting part about the United Arab Emirates is the mix of cultures and backgrounds and ethnicities, if you will. So if you look here, you will see that the nationals in the United Arab Emirates are only maybe 12%, 10%, and the rest of the population, 88 or 90% are foreign nationals of different backgrounds, as you can see. Folks from the Indian subcontinent are the largest in terms of minorities, if I will, or although they are not a minority. Then you have folks from the Philippines and other foreigners or nationals from the rest of the Arab world. So in that sense, I think it's a very unique mix of ethnicities and languages and what have you. Also, rapid development is something that's that distinguishes probably the United Arab Emirates. You're looking, this picture, some of you have seen it, but I think it just speaks volumes. We're looking just about at the same area, and this is how much of a difference 30 years make. So this is dramatic and has a lot of implications to vehicle ownership, vehicle driving, number of kilometers driven, and safety issues, and so on and so forth. So the economy has been growing for the past probably 40 years. So there are a lot of opportunities, even as we speak. As I noted earlier, close to 90% of the population are expatriates or foreigners who reside and work in the United Arab Emirates, and some of them stay for a very long time, 30, 40, 50 years. The nationals of the United Arab Emirates are 12%, maybe 10%, but there is something unique about them. They enjoy a lot of wealth. Naturally, and they have a good welfare system, healthcare, education, housing support, and so on and so forth, and a lot of disposable income, which means that ownership of vehicles or multiple vehicles and operating with those vehicles is just easier than typical, than other parts of the world, if you will. This is interesting. If you look at the population pyramid, there is the United Arab Emirates, by all standards, is young, meaning you'll see the population clearly noted that majority of the people who live in the United Arab Emirates are young by the normal standards. But then you can see a clear skewed indication where there are a lot of males compared to females. And this is because of the laborers who get to the United Arab Emirates to work. And many of them, show up in the Emirates and work, but they are there without their families. So this shift that you see is because of the uniqueness of the demographics in the United Arab Emirates. It's just not just a normal setting, if you will. I think one thing that it has become clear, but I will emphasize it again, is the rapid rate of urbanization that the Emirates seen. And with that comes a lot of issues, obviously related to motorization and number of kilometers driven and the safety that comes with that. The high standard of living in the United Arab Emirates is very clear. If you look at this chart, I think that's where the United Arab Emirates, compared to other wealthy countries, and compared to other Arab countries, you see where the Emirates is, so at the top. Of course, this has also implications to safety, motorization, number of kilometers driven, and so on and so forth. So looking at those facts, I think, is necessary before we sort of start talking about the safety issues and the uniqueness of the condition in the United Arab Emirates. The country has invested quite a bit of money in the transportation infrastructure, roadways, metro lines, tramways, automated mass transit, and most recently, as we speak, is quite a bit of investment in rail, initially for freight, but soon to be also for passengers. So in that sense, there is quite a bit of investment in a rather modern and almost brand new infrastructure. Now, when it comes to safety also, something to be said, quite a bit of things have been done to bring things under control and to ensure that safety is a feature of the country. You can look at this chart here, see a drop in fatalities, although I have to say that normalization, it may not have been done in that chart. So although we see a favorable trend, but maybe we need to qualify that a bit, that it may not be as positive as the graph shows. Nonetheless, there has been progress in combating serious injuries and fatalities because of roadway crashes. The progress that has taken place and is reflected in some of the facts about the United Arab Emirates when it comes to road safety, in part is probably due to the modern infrastructure, roadways and otherwise. There are also stringent laws on the books. In fact, in some cases, some road violations actually can lead to deportation from the country. So it's serious business there to really be compliant, if you will. There is an effective enforcement. Technology use is extensive. They rely on technology to do a lot of interesting things, one of which is enforcing behavior and behavior on their roadway system. With all of this, nonetheless, I think that's the main point of probably this presentation. There are some safety challenges that are very clear in the United Arab Emirates, and I'll just maybe speak about a couple of them, just in the interest of time. I call them soft because, well, I don't know if that's a good description, but soft in the sense that they have much to do with the diversity of cultures and the large proportion of foreigners who live there and come from different backgrounds. When I say backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, linguistic backgrounds, and training and understanding of safety. So they show up in the country, and some of them have never driven a car. They have a chance to drive a car. Sometimes you see the understanding of what is safe and what's appropriate is not exactly uniform, and that is to be expected because of this diversity. Again, 90% of the population comes from all over the world. So everybody brings their practice and understanding. And when I was living there, I often wondered, maybe it's actually one of a kind. I'm not sure if I can think of any other place in the world where you have so many foreigners coming from such a wide array of cultures and languages and backgrounds in one place, having to sort of abide by the same rules. It's mind-boggling. One thing here, just to sort of an example, majority of the drivers, probably a good portion of them, do not read or understand Arabic or English. These are the languages that are used for road signs and all that. So I always wondered, how do they navigate and find their way around? Until now, I don't have sort of an answer, but that just highlights the challenge. And often, and this is another example to just show the influence of this diversity, is when you look at the technology used, especially for signalized intersections, most of those intersections are what you call intelligent signals, meaning capable of doing a lot of things when it comes to operation. Yet, most of the time, we operate them at the most conservative mode, simply because you want to ensure that everybody sort of is served. You just cannot count on everybody understanding exactly how the signal will work and how to react to it. So this diversity in cultures and backgrounds really has huge implication on how the system is operated. So even though there are challenges and there are safety issues, I think progress has been made, and nonetheless, I think there's quite a bit to be achieved, and that has to do with the diversity in the culture or the cultures that are, entitled to work and drive and practice there. There are also barriers related to data availability. Confidentiality and personal data protection is very important. Oftentimes, you find it very hard to obtain the basics of data. And I think that that's a barrier to really understanding what's taking place when it comes to safety. That's very unfortunate, of course, but maybe at some level is understandable as well. The last point I want to say here is a system approach to look at safety is still missing. Safety is not just the infrastructure, it's not just the vehicles, it's not just the budgets and other things. It's all of those together, and I think it's probably something where some improvement probably are warranted. Take a systems approach before you really embrace any of the solutions. Technology alone, as we noted earlier, is not going to solve all issues. I think it will help, but we need to look at other factors as well. Maybe I will stop at this point and just turn the mic to my colleague.
Okay, thank you very much for very comprehensive information regarding Arab situation, particularly for the UAE. So next presentation will be given by Dr. Walter van den Berger, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Also, given the time, I'll try to be as brief and concise as I can do. Already many people have talked about culture and traffic safety culture, but I also believe that you cannot improve it if you cannot measure it. And that's some of the points I would like to highlight in this session, also in the next session. Now, fortunately, when we talk about national culture, there's actually ways of measuring it. And some of you may have heard of Hofstede, but he was someone who, like 30 years ago, was the first person who managed to find a system where you could actually measure national culture. Now, this has evolved, and currently there is some consensus about amongst researchers about the fact that there are two main dimensions of national culture. Many different names have been given to these two dimensions. I use the terms independent and Confucianist, and I think you will be surprised maybe to hear that, but it's because it's very difficult to conceptualize what does Confucianist mean. And maybe you can read the text, but the important is that in independent societies, people individually will actually decide what they think and what they view, while in collective societies, the people's view will more depend from their tribe, from their peers. But we'll come back to that in a second. And actually, if you accept that there are two main dimensions, you can actually then map countries, and this has been done for about 55 countries, and you can see them here. And you can see, so that you have the horizontal axis, that's the Confucianist dimension, and you see to the very right, you see Japan. And you see actually it's almost isolated, meaning that the Japanese culture is quite different from the cultures in many other parts of the world. And then you have the independent dimension, and you see actually, if you go to the top, it especially the European countries who are strong, and the number one are actually the Dutch. So they are the most individualistic, independent thinking nation in the world. But now I will actually group the countries, and I hope it works. Yeah. Actually, what you see within the lines are the continents, and you see Asia in yellow, and you see Europe in blue, you see Latin America in green, and Africa in black, and also you see in orange I would say the Anglo-Saxon world. But strangely enough, if you look very well and you think of the Atlantic Ocean, you put it in, you see almost a map of the world, which actually means that regional differences in a geographic sentence still mean something in terms of culture difference. So making regional difference is at the same time also making cultural differences. And that's actually practical because, and so I could have written here road fatality rates by culture cluster, but also by regional clusters. And you see they are very different. And the worst situation is in sub-Saharan Africa, and the best situation is in Nordic Europe. And these are both very well-defined geographic areas, but also they are very similar in their culture. And you see, for instance, already within Europe, that Eastern Europe is the best, and in Asia, Southern Asia is doing better. Unfortunately, we could have actually taken out Japan, and that would have been much better than there. Actually, Japan is at the level of even better than Nordic Europe. You may remember this was also mentioned in the SEM. This actually is SEM studies. This is actually the base of what national policies can do. Why do I use this? Because we should distinguish between different types of culture. And I think today sometimes they've been mixed up a little bit. And you can see, and I will then show actually the slide, you can see culture at the level of a community, like a country, a region, a city, or you can see it within an organization, within a company. And both are related, but are not the same. And they're also different if you want to take measures to improve them. So I will not build up very quickly these slides. And you see that actually you can have a national culture or a regional culture and sometimes subcultures like in the Emirates, but you can also have corporate cultures. And in the end, this leads then to traffic safety culture at the workplace and traffic safety culture at the macro level. So at both the level of governments, you can influence the traffic safety culture as you can do at the workplace. How do you do that? Actually by influence, and I will not, all the different relationships. So I'll go back just to show this. So it's very complex, but I think it's useful to understand that there is culture at the level of nations or communities, but also within companies. And maybe this aspect has been undervalued so far, and maybe one of the mechanisms which might be most successful in improving within companies and in the end also within nations. Another thing is that in road safety, in the end, you make progress by having new regulation. At least in the beginning, that's needed because people have not a self-discipline. But we see in every country that there is a resistance to road safety measures because in general, they inhibit the freedom. But it's important to understand that this is not the same argument or holds to the same extent in different countries. And just this graph, the 4 things on the bottom are 4 different types of measure. I won't say which one, it's not important. And I see here 6 different areas in the world. You have Austria, you have California, you have China, Flanders, where I'm coming from, Greece and Texas. And you see then when you're asking them why people are against certain measures, that for instance in China, the limitation of freedom is much lower of importance than it is in California. So what I want to say is not just behavior and attitude, but also resistance to new legislation which can differ a lot and is reflected by the culture. What is also interesting, and without disclosing all these measures, that the nature of the opposition is different by measure. So it's not the same that people are against all measures, but certain measures they see as more important. So just to stress the variety across the world, but also within a country on different measures. What I also think is that although traffic safety culture is something at the level of a group, it's not yourself, in the end, it will influence how people look at the situation and road safety. So, and I actually see 4 levels, which actually are similar to what my colleague and actually my PhD promoter, Nicola Christie, told in the beginning. She had these 5 steps of traffic safety culture, but you can also see a few steps at the individual level, and that's what they are. Awareness, first of all, that at least you understand what non-safe behavior will cause. And there I think also, maybe I'll go back in the previous one, what Claudia said, that if you realize that actually driving 50 km/h is the same as jumping from 3 stages, that's when you become aware at least something has to be done. And then also to accept that this is not acceptable. And that therefore that's the beginning of an action, that you accept that the current situation cannot be tolerated anymore. A third step is that actually then you're willing to comply and you will actually support safety, not just for you, but also for others. And the last step is in the end that you have not only safe or non-risky behavior, but you're also willing to influence others. And that's how the common culture develops. So different mechanisms to improve traffic safety culture, many of those have been mentioned. I think it's useful to distinguish between 2 groups. I call them hard and soft. You could also say tangible and intangible. And I'll just go quickly. So these are things which you can actually put both at the level of companies, but at the level also of nations, which can change, which are obligations, which are restrictions. On the other hand, you can also try to influence people by education, training, campaigns, and if needed, rehabilitation. And all of them are needed and can be used to improve traffic safety culture. In conclusion, traffic safety culture is influenced by the national culture and safety culture in companies. So it's not some standing on its own. You have to look at, if in your country, most companies don't think safety is important, it will be very difficult to have traffic safety. Or if the government thinks it's like something which is of lesser importance than mobility, then it won't help. It differs a lot, as we already know. It does not just change by culture measures, as education, but also by hard measures. And I think that employers can do more to promote road safety culture in their organizations, which eventually will also affect the nations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wouter. So then last presentation will be given by Ms. Amatoro from International Perspectives. Please.
Konnichiwa. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much. A heartfelt thank you to IATSS for the invitation. I might not be the only member in this panel that is not a member of the project, but definitely our organization enjoy a very fruitful collaboration since many years, and we look forward to developing that further. Maybe a few words about the IFF, the International Road Federation, so you can put into context what I'm going to share with you in a few moments. Our federation was born after the Second World War for reconstruction. And so infrastructure is really the DNA. Today, the Federation welcomes members from the public sector, so it could be the ministries, the road agencies, private sector, and also research, academia, and civil society. So literally the entire ecosystem that is around roads. We operate in more than 130 countries around the world. So I do get a chance to observe when I travel, and I do travel a lot, how culture and everything we have been discussing today influences. We organize quite a number of different types of activities, but around these 4 key strategic pillars that you see on the screen, really making sure we have opportunities to exchange knowledge and expertise. We bring people together like we're doing today to make sure that flow of an exchange of information happens. We work at national and also a lot, of course, at international level on policy and advocacy. And we do work on data and statistics. And you might know IRF for its World Road Statistics. We pulled them together since 61 years, so quite a bit of experience. It's data that concern not just road safety, but overall roads and inland transport, I would say. I encourage you to take a look. The data are available for free thanks to the support of 2 private sector foundations, Total Energies and Michelin Foundation. And we do have quite a number of dashboards specifically on road safety that will allow you to compare the situation between countries and regions of the world, also countries and regions belonging to the same different types of economic groupings, if I may say so. A lot has already been shared. We've heard from wonderful colleagues and the 2 keynotes. So I want to start with this picture, because at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. This picture was taken from the room of my hotel, not here. It was in Asia very recently. I was invited to speak at a conference. Looking out of my window, that's what I experienced. From a first look, a wonderful piece of infrastructure, very modern, fantastic pavement, good markings, and one would say fantastic. It's an intersection that is taking care of pedestrians. But then I stood at the window for just a few minutes, and this is the scenario I saw in front of me. I apologize for those who are online, but if I can use the, no, I went backwards. No, I can't use the pointer. I think, yes. So there are cars, well, it's difficult to do it, but there's actually a cycle lane occupied by cars who are parked. There are pedestrians who are crossing in all kinds of directions. There are people on scooters and motorcycles waiting for the green light on the zebra, on the pedestrian crossing. And we have cars on the left-hand side coming from we don't know what kind of direction. So if I were to ask you right now, what's the problem? What's the problem here in this specific situation? Most of you would probably say, oh, it's a question of users' behavior. Yes, indeed, there's no mistake about that. But actually, we operate in systems, and I think the previous colleagues have mentioned that, and I want to reiterate the fact that we do operate in systems. And so when you operate in systems, it's not just one element or one issue that comes into the picture. In this specific case, and by the way, that specific case is a very common case in many regions around the world. It's not just Asia, it's not just that specific country, it's everywhere. And what's the problem? It's issues with road designs. It's issue, of course, of users' behavior. There's an issue about enforcement, because probably if we were having in there policemen or technology sanctioning those behaviors, certainly things would be different. But there's a major issue with policy and its implementation. And you would think about, okay, policy, why? Because actually that intersection was really, really nice and well built, but probably was not built having a policy in place that prioritized pedestrians. because in that case, we would have seen a different type of infrastructure in there, and refugee islands, because the intersection was actually very wide. And I witnessed myself, an elderly person trying to cross, he couldn't. And at this, after a few seconds, he found himself in the middle of the zebra and cars coming in all directions. So terrible. There's an issue with geometric design standards. I think it has been mentioned a couple of times, and I'm very happy that finally, after years, we finally realized that there's an issue with those geometric design standards. Most of the time, these standards are old, they have not been updated to take into consideration the fact that there's not just cars on our roads, but there are pedestrians, there are cyclists, and more recently also micromobility. There's an issue about making sure that we perform road safety audits as mandatory, and they should be made mandatory, because there's a lot where we can correct upfront at the level of the design already if you perform audits. And those audits should be performed by qualified professionals. It's extremely important that every country has a proper training and accreditation center for road safety professionals, because those of you who know road safety audit will know that it's done in a team. And why it's done in a team, that's in fact because we need to take into consideration different aspects. It's not just about engineering, it's about having psychologists maybe, because of that cultural aspect we have been discussing so much. When we commission infrastructure, it's extremely important that we set clear KPIs when it comes to road safety. So we do have means actually to say, I am prioritizing safety here. And of course, making good use of data and technology, because as the colleague said, unless we measure, we understand, and we dig even into those data, we are not able to understand exactly where the problem lies. And working in partnership is fundamental, because as you have clearly understood, this is not just about a matter of engineering. Here's some example on the picture on how our federation is giving his own contribution and working. On the left-hand side, a recent publication that we did in the framework of sustainable mobility for all. It's actually a collaborative effort that brings around the table 57 transport organizations around the world. We looked into providing some recommendations for policymakers about policy, but also how you translate the wonderful policy once you have it into action. So you will find in that publication quite a number of case studies. We do work on geometric road design standards reform in Central Asia, at the bottom in Tanzania, and now more countries in Africa, Senegal, Morocco, Mauritania. And then we have an innovation committee that is actually looking at innovation horizontally, in fact, and safety is one of the elements. So we look at technology, of course, but a lot more. We recently launched to really stress again the importance of having qualified professional, an international registry for road safety auditors. It's available for free, open to everyone. And the reason why we did that is to make sure that we create that culture, and we help create that culture around safety, also in the profession, and making sure that we understand the value of good road safety audits, and that we use those professionals not only to perform audits and on new and existing infrastructure, but we use that as a means to demonstrate at the policy and regulatory level what should be done and can be done. That's all from my side, and please note that IRF has changed, not just the logo, but also the website. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zamato. Okay, due to my poor management, time is behind schedule. And I already picked up several keywords from each of the 4 presentations. And from now, I originally wanted to have a discussion session, but let me propose to have a discussion session after the second short presentations. right? So that we can, right, well manage. Okay, these are keywords picked up from their presentations. Okay, then let me move to the second round of the short presentation. And compact presentations, highly appreciated. Right? It is pretty behind schedule. And first speaker will be Dr. van der Berge, please.
Yeah, so in the previous sessions and as speakers, we have already talked a lot about the contributors to traffic safety culture, and on the first, and the seminar was also given. But let's also think about the potential impact of improving traffic safety culture. So if you see, I mean, I won't discuss them now, there are many factors contributing to traffic safety culture, but also in itself, traffic safety culture influences other aspects. And the first thing, I don't have a special slides about social norm. Social norm in society is about what you think your friends would do in a certain situation, and also what you think your friends will think about your actions. And this can be very tolerant for road safety, or it can be very strict. And for instance, in Belgium on alcohol, we have still a problem. And I give always the same example. After a wedding, and many people have been drinking too much, their friends will say, go that way because the police is on that way. In other countries, the children will say, you're not going to go in that car. So that's a different in terms of the social norm, in this case, tolerance for alcohol and driving under alcohol. But let's maybe also talk about two other things about behavior and attitudes. And first of all, just in case it needs to be proven, let me just show that not just traffic safety culture, but certainly national culture is correlated, and actually correlated quite strongly with the fatality rate. I did an analysis of about 60 countries, and you see there's a very high Pearson correlation of 0.7. I don't think you get that a lot in sociological research. But you could say, yes, this is linked to the world level, and there's so much different. But actually, here's a slide, because I have to talk about Europe, which gives the values only for Europe. So this is the correlation between the fatality rate and independent, and you see that the variance is still very high. So the higher the independence level, or in the dimension of culture, actually the lower the fatality rate. So it's actually an illustration that there is a strong correlation between culture, national culture, and fatality rate. However, this is not just because of the culture, because culture itself is related with human development. And some of you may know the International Human Development Index of the United Nations. It consists of 3 elements: life expectancy, gross national income per capita, and the third one is education level. These are combined into one index. Now, what do you see if you make the link within culture, that actually the higher the human development, actually the higher the dimensional independence? Now, we have to understand it's not because the culture follows the economy and not vice versa. It's not because you have a very individualistic society that actually your economy will grow. It has been shown it's the opposite. It also actually means that as most countries continue to develop, so we're thinking now about low and middle income countries, that their culture will change at least on one dimension, which is actually a good thing for road safety. But it comes also with the fact that when they grow, they will have also more economic resources to have better roads or safer cars, etc. So it's very difficult actually to distinguish culture or national culture from economic development. And sometimes they are mixed up, and I just want to highlight that. But you cannot negate it. It's not because they are linked that they are not there. And of course, I give also some correlation. It is also the case that national culture is associated with behavior in traffic. I will not go through all these correlations, but you see actually some very strong correlation between, on the one hand, risky behavior, and on the other hand, the national culture, both to a lesser extent confucianism and independence. So, in as far as it needs to be proven, culture actually influences not just the fatality rate, but also underlying factors, the behavior. Another aspect is that traffic safety culture also influences the way we look at potential new measures. So most of you will know what ISA is, Intelligent Speed Assistant, which is actually now compulsory to a modest degree in new cars in Europe, is that you can see that if you see these are all the European countries, the willingness to support such a measure actually varies. This graph was made before the measure was introduced in new cars. And you see that, for instance, in Greece, there's a high level of support, as in Bulgaria. These happen to be also countries where the road safety is not so good in Europe, certainly Bulgaria not. But like in Austria, actually 60% of the population is against it. So the traffic safety culture also influences the way we look at certain measures. And this actually, you see also the situation, the more people are independent, the more they are individualistic, the more they are against measures that reduce speeding. Strangely enough, it is in those countries that speeding measures are implemented because they are the rich countries. So you get a very strange contradiction, although there is opposition culture against speeding, that in those countries speeding restriction is implemented because there is a political will to do it, but also because they have the resources to do it. And then I come to basically an important topic, is that we have been discussing traffic safety culture and also what it entails, but let's also agree that there is no consensus, and there have been many attempts. There is no consensus of the definition. There have been attempts to operationalize it. I think Nicola talked about road safety maturity. There's also the road safety index in America. There are road safety performance indicators. So we have a number of ways to measure it, but it's clearly that we don't have a kind of commonly agreed system of measurement for traffic safety culture. We could start from ESA data, in which IATSS and Japan is involved, but they are missing certain elements. So what I'm pleading for is that we should look closer into this concept of traffic safety culture, and that there would be more international and scientific consensus about actually what is needed. Happily, there will be 2 European projects starting very soon, probably April 2025, which specifically will work on that, but hopefully they will actually work in a broader context. And then once we get an agreement about how to measure traffic safety culture, it will also be more easy to improve it, but also to monitor whether that improvement has been successful. In terms of, for the European region, what our priority research needs and policies, there are a lot. I think I have just time to read them. They may not be the same in Asia, certainly may be different from low and middle income countries, but speed reduction in cities is certainly one of them. Also use more technology-based enforcement, that was also said by my Japanese colleague. International benchmarking, or actually best practice. I mean, it's not all the low-hanging fruit has gone. So if you can see which practices work best in other countries, you should use them. Also safer rural roads. Maybe the problem will soon get solved in cities. Separation of traffic modes also in the rural environment, more general vulnerable road users. Specifically in Europe, it's already working but it could also be something to be thought of in Asia, that if you have like a penalty in one country, that you have to pay it in your own country, so to make reckless drivers in other countries responsible. Try to see the benefits of vehicle automations. I'm not a strong believer that vehicle automation will solve everything, but it is clear that certain technologies will help to reduce fatalities. Safety of e-scooters, helmets for cyclists, a very controversial topic. By the way, the more people are cycling in Europe, in a country, the more the opposition against helmets. And you get also this kind of dilemma that by promoting cyclist use, you're also promoting serious injuries. So it's a difficult thing if you want sustainable mobility, and that you also risk to have more accidents with cyclists. Helmets to some extent can address part of that problem. Public transport is certainly a solution for road safety, certainly in Europe, but I think also in many other countries. And that only can happen by changing the traffic safety cultures. I have to say, this is my last word, that I'm the 3rd time now I am Tokyo and Japan. I've always been impressed by the traffic safety culture in your country, and I would like to congratulate Japan for what it has achieved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, I skipped the description of the question of the second round of the panel discussion. It was the question to what extent cultural aspects play an important role in road safety in your region? That was the topic. Okay. So then next will be Dr. Asatoribi.
Oh, for that question, I would like to talk about the Japan and the Asian countries again. So as I already mentioned, like Japanese traffic safety culture is somehow matured because of the tackles in the past decades. Like traffic culture, I should say, were created through traffic wars, we call so-called traffic wars. Like many victims were sacrificed by traffic crashes during the last period, and thanks to the development of infrastructure or many hard and soft measures, currently we have achieved such kind of matured society in terms of traffic safety culture. But I also think, like, as Walter mentioned, like Japanese national culture, which historically, traditionally emphasized the importance to be harmonized in a group, try to think about others, try not to disturb others. Such aspect contributed to a lot to, how can I say, quickly achieve a certain level of traffic safety. Then now, as an example from childhood, people consider traffic safety as a very local problem because elementary school children usually has to walk to go school by their own. So as I shown in this picture, like children are like very walking by themselves, and actually local people, parents or local people voluntarily support children's work, like standing in the crosswalk, trying to be a flag, have a flag, trying to show like, okay, you can go or you should stop or something like that. Such kind of education is really done in a local level voluntarily. And in many schools, we are asked to sometimes make a poster for traffic safety, and the painting contest were organized in many municipalities or something like that. So from childhood, we used to be, how can I say, closer to traffic safety problem. That's contributed to be such a matured traffic culture. Then change in traffic safety culture, I am showing one example. If we can change some culture or habit of behavior in terms of pedestrian priority. So now, as well, like drivers were or still are accustomed to disregard pedestrian priority at unsignalized crosswalk, and this increasing the risk of pedestrians. So nowadays we are putting a lot of measures like public relations by providing this kind of posters in many places and try to intensify the enforcement at mid-block crosswalk. And also we try to change the design of the crosswalk by providing the central island to make more easier to cross the crosswalk, or try to implement raised crosswalk that will lead drivers to slow down before the crosswalk, something like that. So these kind of many measures from different aspects may have contributed to the increase of cars stopped for pedestrian at unsignalized crosswalk. The left top chart shows observation or survey conducted by JAF for the percentage of cars that stopped for crossing pedestrians at unsignalized crosswalk. So in the last 10 years or 15 years, we can see a kind of increase of the yielding of cars for pedestrians. So this kind of change may be possible, so we need to believe like we have to take significant measures for improving, changing behavior. Then looking at the Asian countries, one of the very culture is locally adopted transport mode. They have really variety of transport mode, and they do have locally adopted mode like tuk-tuk, jeepneys, rickshaw, or something like that, that are original and describing really cultural aspect in those countries. They are very convenient, door-to-door transport, flexible in narrow street, regardless of congestion, and can be operated low cost. So people are really accustomed to use these modes. But there are a lot of safety challenges because these modes are really vulnerable and uncontrolled loading and unloading are everywhere and the low compliance to traffic law. Sometimes many passengers, more than capacity, are riding and making crashes. So the challenge is try not to, how can I say, criticize or try not to remove these original transport mode, but how can we incorporate into a safe way? And the other is about the street as a place of pedestrian activities. In Asian countries, historically, traditionally, street has been the places where people make activities like stall street, we can eat the very delicious food there, buy cheap money, or festivals on road, streets are organized, something like that. Actually, Japan used to have such kind of activities on street, but we all demolished, mostly demolished, to make space for automobiles because it conflicts with road traffic. Then we realized like we lost some of the cultural aspects or vitality of the cities, and we draw this kind of a vision again. So how to balance this kind of activities and safety or transport or many different functions, because the space is limited, particularly in Asian countries. So that is very main big questions regarding the relationship between culture and safety. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So next, Dr. Gassan Abdelebde, please.
Thank you. I will skip the first few because I went through them. I'm going to just make it brief in the interest of time. I think, as I noted earlier, there are two distinct sort of groups in the Emirates. There is the UAE nationals. That's a small group. And then you have everybody else, and that includes different cultures, Indians, Filipinos, and other Arabs. When it comes to safety, there are two things that are very clear. If you look among the nationals, especially younger drivers, they are far more willing to engage in risky drivers than everybody else. And if you look at their involvement in fatal crashes, they are over-involved, meaning it's a lot more than their proportion. That means, well, of course, it's very unfortunate, but I think that informs perhaps if we are to do something to safety and to enhance safety, I think we need to acknowledge that, dealing with this subgroup, the UAE nationals, I think need to capitalize on the fact that this community, UAE nationals, is small, uniform, it's tribal, if you will. You can easily sort of work with that group, and I argue that you can easily influence their behavior, especially the younger drivers, so that leads to a safer situation. If you look at the other groups, I would say, and if you look at pedestrian behavior and cyclists, and you will notice that there tends to be higher involvement of other nationalities in pedestrian and cyclist crashes and actually fatal crashes. And again, given the size and diversity of those other cultures, to intervene, I think you need to acknowledge the diversity of their backgrounds, but then you need to work among those diverse backgrounds and engage them more strongly or more actively in civic sort of activities. And through that framework, sort of infuse and encourage, if you will, more than punish or penalize, safety sort of practices and norms. And so I think the point here is the different cultures in the United Arab Emirates are very clear in their influence on the safety culture. And that means we really need to acknowledge these differences if we are to intervene in a way that's meaningful and impactful. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your cooperation. Right, and the last presentation will be given by Ms. Susanna Zamataro, please.
Still on. Thank you. Well, I think I don't need to talk about this anymore. We have been so much talking about it. I was asked actually to cover world perspective, but then I realized that there's some common trends in the problems that we're seeing around the world, and they're all very similar. So I decided actually to take as a case study my own country. I live and work in Switzerland since more than 20 years, but actually I am Italian, and Italian from the south, because you need to know that in Italy there's a huge difference between the north and the south. So your theory about the climate and the culture is actually fitting my country as well. We are a country, as you know, we like to talk a lot, like me with the hands, being connected all the time. So distracted driving is one of the major problem that is in the country, use of a mobile phone while driving, because your mother will call you 20 times to know what you want to eat. So I make a joke out of it, but it's really a very serious problem that we're trying to resolve, in fact, through the use of technology, because it's simply impossible to be able to have police forces checking you all the time. The second one is about the fact that we don't have a culture around respecting pedestrians and cyclists in my country, unfortunately. This picture is taken, it's actually during a protest. It took place in Milan. Milan is actually lucky having a mayor who is focusing on sustainability, very focused on promoting active mobility. Unfortunately, because of the lack of the culture in the country of respect for pedestrians and cyclists, his new approach has actually turned into a spark increase into fatalities in the cycling community. And so this was a protest saying, in Milan, you die. In Milan, you die because in Milan, the culture is that the car is the king. And so even if the mayor is putting in place some good infrastructure for cycling, the car is the king, and so they're still speeding. Milan is known for being the industrial center in Italy, and so they're all always under pressure. They have to go faster. If you are a pedestrian or a cyclist, you are delaying me. Another one that is familiar to a lot of the countries we've heard about is about speeding and aggressive driving, with a specific focus, yes, on young, especially during the weekend. Italy has just approved, and it's entering into law exactly in these days, a new road code with a lot of stringent, much more stringent measures, including and fines in terms of speeding and aggressive driving. But what you see on the screen is actually an extrapolation from an extract from a survey which was conducted by the main highway authority in Italy, ANAS, right before the launch of the code. And I need my glasses here. Basically, what it boils down to is when they surveyed more than 4,000 drivers around speeding, more than a half. So 1 out of 2 said that they don't actually believe the speeding is dangerous. Because if you are an expert driver, speeding is not really a problem. So it gives you a sense of the problem of culture and missing the safety culture in the country. And I'm trying to gain some time. So here's some of the stringent measures being introduced by the new road code, or the reform of the road code. So on speeding, on drink driving, where we are getting less and less tolerant, mobile phone use and seatbelt compliance, which is still an issue. I remember to everyone that Italy is one of the founding members of the European Union. Yet when you come to my country, unfortunately, because of that culture, and even seatbelt compliance has issues. The code has also very stringent, and probably one of the most stringent norms in terms of micromobility, and that's where I want to spend a couple of minutes. Micromobility is becoming quite an issue. I think the previous speakers mentioned in many countries around the world, we still lack good data on micromobility. But there's been a recent study that you see on the screen from ITF in 2025 about safer micromobility, which had a bit of quite an interesting piece of data. And when you start digging into those data, you see the most e-scooter related crashes involved actually one single rider. So it's the rider most of the time. So 93%. When you dig into those data, you will start finding the cultural aspects as well. It happens at night. It's younger generations, it's younger. And why? Because they have been drinking and partying. So interesting, and it's a good reminder of how important it is to have good data, as I think Nicola was also mentioning. The pedestrians are injured through the collisions, 30%, or 59% of the cases, it's because those scooters have been left, and we know very well in Europe, abandoned left and right on the sidewalks. And there's another big problem coming up from micromobility. It's about the severe injuries that this type of mobility is bringing on the stage. How should we address micromobility? I love this infographics, which has been done by ITDP. It's another organization that does research and applied research as well on mobility issues around the world, and it's basically a lot of what Claudia was presenting. It's about having forgiving infrastructure, also infrastructure that is able to cater to the needs of all its users. It's about reducing the speed in those areas where you have a high potential of interaction between vehicles and pedestrians or a cyclist. So infrastructure can do a lot if you also tackle the issue of speed. One final element to give you a perspective of what kind of tsunami the micromobility can be. It's in Europe 20 million users already of e-scooters, and the micromobility market is valued of over 100 billion by 2030. So it's really on the rise. So there's on one side a huge potential for us to reduce emission and so address the issue of sustainability, because micromobility means as well taking people out of the car. But the trade-off on the other side is that if we don't think and start thinking about safety and everything else now, then we will have to face even bigger troubles going forward. I won't go through all this, but these are some of the recommendations that you will find on that publication. And again, I want to reiterate that addressing issue of speed and infrastructure will be quite fundamental to be able to succeed. Thank you very much.
So, thank you very much, Ms. Amataro. And I'm very sorry that I needed to have made you make haste, right? And because of my poor operation of the panel discussion session. But actually, we have only less than 4 minutes for the discussion. But you know, this is not just a presentation session, but a panel discussion session. But still, I need to ask you very small questions, right? And as I mentioned, the keywords from your presentations have been already picked up, right? And these keywords are from our second presentation. And in Dr. Toribi's presentation, right, she talked about our experience of a traffic war, right? And at that time, our situation was totally different from right now. And but still, due to various activities, right? And then we have overcome the situation. While Dr. Vandenberger showed us mapping the relation between independent and fatality rate, or independent and Confucianist, right? And each country has a different development stage. And the question is how to consider this kind of change in time, right? How to consider the time series to describe the different traffic culture in your research. Yeah, Dr. Vandenberger, right, do you have any short comment about that?
I mean, I still keep insisting that we, just as we can measure national culture or community culture in a certain way, we still need an agreement about what should we measure to say this is good traffic safety culture and this is bad traffic safety culture, and then we will be able to make a time scale. So that's my current reaction to this. I think we are not there, and it's very strange because in many countries, including Japan, but also in many Nordic countries, traffic safety culture is very good, both at the national level and in companies, yet they cannot say how good they are, or actually where they could still improve. What I think actually is that whatever definition we will find, we will have different components, and even countries with a overall strong traffic safety culture, they will have some dimension where it's weaker, and also they will be able to improve on the element. A big difference is that, or maybe one warning is that traffic safety culture is not just behavior, it's also action, and it's also actually effective implementation of action, and that's very important. I give some examples. There are some low middle income countries that have a fantastic road safety policy and strategy on paper. So you would give them high marks, but then you should also measure actually the effectiveness of these actions.
Thank you very much. And I would like to have one more very short comment from Ms. Zamataro, right? Because Dr. Gassan Ablevde introduced the situation of Arab nations, which consists of diverse population, right? Through your experience, if you could have any recommendations for those countries.
Very quickly, because I see the clock is ticking here. Yes, we didn't have the chance to get into the religion, but I think colleague mentioned as well the importance sometimes of the religion in terms of what Wouter was saying. It's not just behavior, it's the entire ecosystem around. So in certain religion, women have limitations in the way they move, or they're not allowed to drive, so it will reduce the risk. There are issues around religion and traditions because of festivals. So again, it comes back to the issue that we need to have disaggregated and precise data for us to be able to understand. And the message more than around religion that I want to leave you with is about the fact that not to forget that we operate in systems. So you will try to address one issue, and then as voters and others said, then you'll find problems elsewhere. The example of Milan that I just presented to you gives you an idea that yes, actually it was a very good initiative. The mayor wanted to promote active mobility and cycling, but look at the unintended consequences of well-meaning policies. And this is something that we're seeing more and more after COVID. There was all this move for providing infrastructure for pedestrians and cyclists. And I should have brought you another fantastic picture where you have a pedestrian lane and a bicycle lane in the middle of the road with the bus coming on the side. So yes, in theory, the policy is a correct one, but how you implement it, it's something else. So think as a system.
Thank you. Then Dr. Gassan Ablevde, if you have any quick comment. If not, that's fine.
I think regardless of what induces certain unsafe practices or behaviors, whether it's religion or culture, but again, you cannot sort of disassociate culture from religion. I think that needs to be acknowledged and addressed, sensitively and appropriately, and I think it's a valid point.
That is a very sensitive matter, right? And Dr. Toriumi, if you have any short notice? No? If no, time is already up. Right? I'm so sorry. Okay, then I'd like to wrap up this panel discussion session. In this session, 4 panelists provided various perspectives on traffic safety culture from different standpoints and regions of the world. So it was also suggested that the climatic conditions and the religious aspects of the region are also closely related to forming traffic safety culture, although we must be very careful. So in this way, we all know that the factors related to traffic safety culture are very diverse, and the perspectives vary depending on the region. But I think there is a common view that traffic safety culture has undoubtedly an important meaning for traffic safety. And traffic safety can be changed or can be controlled. And it is beyond my capacity to summarize such a discussion at this moment. However, I think the important thing is how to utilize these findings in each region and work on their implementation in the real world. I would like to leave this kind of discussion of the way how to implement in practice of traffic safety measures according to the region to the next workshop led by Professor Morimoto. Finally, I would like to close this panel discussion session with a big round of applause for the panelists and everyone who provided thoughtful and meaningful comments and engaged in enthusiastic discussion. Thank you very much again for your attention.
Thank you very much, everyone. Please go back to your seat. Thank you.